Zack Snyder, man. He's one of those big name Hollywood directors that I just can't seem to figure out. He makes a name for himself in 2004 with the remake of Dawn of the Dead, beautifully realizes the world of 300, directs some hot garbage like Sucker Punch, and then spends like half a dozen years farting around with Warner Brothers and DC trying to bring the Justice League to life. Heck, he even took a well-meaning shot at Watchmen, a graphic novel widely considered to be unfilmable, and it actually wasn't all that bad. While I heaped a lot of praise on his cut of Justice League a couple of months ago, link in description, his overall output is just plain mixed. Teaming up with Netflix, we finally get a movie that feels completely unrestrained and devoid of anything resembling studio interference. Army of the Dead is peak Zack Snyder, and you know what? It just might be the best movie he's ever made. Thank you so much for checking out the review. Before we get started, click on that red subscribe button and the old notification bell. That way you know whenever I post a new piece of content. I'm sure there are exceptions to this, but it appears that you are not allowed to make a zombie movie unless it has "of the" in the title. Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead again, Shaun of the Dead. Sticking with the "of the" formula that worked so well before, Zack Snyder has graced us with Army of the Dead, a confidently made film that knows exactly what it wants to be and gets almost everything right. The gist of the picture is this: a US Army convoy escorting a heavily secured box of cargo crashes in the southern Nevada desert due to an ill-timed moment of physical relations between two consenting adults. The box contains a zombie that was being held in Area 51, and of course, it immediately begins killing and infecting people. That infection essentially levels the nearby city of Las Vegas, maybe you've heard of it, and this is the setting for the events that follow. In case you weren't yet aware of this, entertainment centered around the concept of zombies is kinda everywhere. Zombie movies, zombie video games, zombie comic books, and zombie TV shows are regularly shat out by the entertainment industry. Don't get me wrong, many of these are highly enjoyable. The market just tends to be oversaturated by them. Zack Snyder seems to be fully aware of this, and Army of the Dead is largely successful because of the numerous ways it adds personal touches to the genre. Instead of being a movie about your traditional massive zombie outbreak, it's really about a team of mercenaries breaking into a Vegas casino to loot the vault on behalf of a billionaire tycoon. Probably the most unique thing about the story is the way it handles the zombies themselves. While there are thousands of slow, rambling zombies, there are also undead that are both faster and smarter. Before we continue, let us briefly consult dictionary.com to get a handle on the definition of zombie. Zombie, noun, no surprise there. In voodoo, a mute and will-less body robbed of its soul and given the semblance of life by supernatural force, usually for manual labor or some evil purpose. Okay, so that checks out. In popular culture, an undead creature with a reanimated human body, typically depicted in science fiction or horror stories as contagious to the living by bite and vulnerable only to serious head trauma. So yeah, both of these definitions do a good job covering all of the bases. While this accurately explains the Army of the Dead zombies for the most part, some of the zombies here have a very unique characteristic that sets them apart. Instead of being will-less or mindless, we're shown numerous alpha zombies that are anything but. They have motivations, relationships, emotions, rituals, and practices. It's quite the unique twist on a rather tired character. The Horde is led by the original zombie in a box and his zombie queen. While both of these characters are still restricted to communicating by grunts, moans, and screeches, they somehow still manage to exude more life and personality than most human characters in a zombie flick. As for the good guys, they're led by Scott Ward, a former mercenary turned burger cook, played by the always reliable Dave Bautista. So here's the thing, I like Bautista. I think he's a decent action hero. But in Army of the Dead, he's got as much charm and charisma as a jar of peanuts. I hate to knock on the guy too much. After all, he's fantastic in the MCU and Blade Runner 2049, but he is straight up boring in this. I appreciate that he tries to portray Scott as this down-on-your-luck dad, but he ends up just being one of the weakest aspects of the picture. There was a ton of room for nuance with the character, but he ends up just being flat-out lifeless. Pardon the pun. Thankfully, there is a rather broad swath of characters to pick up the slack. Scott's daughter Kate plays the sympathy role to perfection. The scumbag security guard Bert has just the right amount of nastiness. The billionaire's right-hand man along for the ride Martin has his own shady motivations. And the back and forth banter between the safecracker Dieter and the soldier Vanderhoe is right on the money. One of the things that Army of the Dead absolutely nails is its tone and atmosphere. The destroyed Vegas Strip provides the ideal setting, and the group's need to escape the city before the US government nukes it into oblivion gives us just the right amount of tension. Zack Snyder was his own cinematographer on this, and the movie looks straight up gorgeous. Another thing that Army of the Dead gets right is its sense of humor. Zombie movies always end up being somewhat depressing, and the film offsets that with a handful of laugh out loud moments, and includes a physical gag that made me laugh out loud, the hardest I have in a long time. Helicopter pilot Peters carries much of the comedic load, and Tig Notaro's deadpan delivery does a great job in lightening the mood. In addition to my criticism of Bautista, there's one other important thing to note about this film. Army of the Dead is simply too long. There's easily 15 to 20 minutes of unnecessary bloat in the form of various character moments that should have been shelved. The filmmakers are better at this than I am, but this weird subplot about refugees displaced by the Horde is just out of place and borders on cringy. Cutting that would have shaved like 20 minutes off of the runtime and made the film that much better. A few of the characters make baffling decisions as a direct result of this exact subplot, so yeah, they should have thrown it out in the first place. Army of the Dead isn't perfect, but it's a damn good zombie movie, and proof that when Zack Snyder's unshackled from the studio bonds, he's capable of making thoroughly entertaining films. Thank you so much for watching. If you found the review helpful or you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing. You can also like and share the video since that tells YouTube my channel is worth promoting. Sound off down in the comments, hit me up, let me know what you think of Army of the Dead, and I will see you next Wednesday at 9 a.m.